So in today's video, I'm going to be answering a question about how I learned landscape photography and my progress or my journey from a complete beginner about 13 years ago to becoming a full-time landscape photographer around 7 years ago, and then everything that's happened from that transition all the way until now, where I spend most of my year living out of a tent, backpacking, and taking landscape photos. So a really good question. If you guys have a question of your own, make sure to leave them down in the comments. That's where I generate the ideas from these videos from. And if you guys like to sign up for my email list, I have a bunch of other PDFs that go over my complete shooting technique. You guys can download them and take them out in the field with you. I also have a 10-day free trial for all my courses, which is included in that link. So you can check that out down below, and let's get started with today's video. So the progress, or the process, I should say, of my landscape photography journey. So I think it was about 13 years ago now. It's 2009, so that'd be about 13 years ago. I had just moved out to Washington State here in the Pacific Northwest, and I had never really taken photos besides just handheld point and shoot photos that I took on hiking trips. And my brother and I would go on all these fun hiking trips. They're just day hikes, but we would get out in the mountains, and we had no equipment. We had some running shoes and some regular shorts that we wore for basketball, and we just go out and hike in the mountains. So I had this little point and shoot camera. So I started to just learn composition unknowingly just by using this point and shoot camera. And sometimes I'd have these really cool shots when I come home, because if you guys have ever used a point and shoot, it's really cool for experimenting because you can move it around so easily and it's in your pocket. You can always test out your compositions and you'll probably get a lot of good shots from it. This was before camera phones were really good, but camera phones essentially do the same thing now. So I was just using that and I realized how much fun it was. And at the same time, I was just getting into working for Boeing, doing aerospace engineering. So my entire day was spent doing really technical mathematics, but not only really technical mathematics, but also designing repairs for airplanes, where I would write out these repairs step by step. And then I would sign my signature on it. It'd get sent off to the airplane and they would build this thing like I designed the repair to be. So it was a lot of really technical thinking, and I wanted a way to escape when I got home. So I got into photography, and at first photography seemed really hard because I would be like, oh man, what settings do I select? So I broke it down into a workflow, which I now teach out in all my videos. And by having this workflow of when you should select what settings and why you're selecting the specific settings, then all of that technical stuff can go into the background, because if you do it enough times, and it doesn't have to be that many times, your subconscious remembers what you should be doing and when. And then that's when you get to the really creative part of photography. Because realistically, as photographers, we don't really care about all the settings. We need them to be right so we can get good quality images. But if we could just think, the camera would read our minds and it would take the photo, all we would really be concerned about is good light, good locations, and good compositions. Those are the actual fun parts. So I love the adventure of hiking. I love the adventure of backpacking and getting out into the wilderness. And I love finding good compositions. And I love the search for compositions and learning about the entire landscape and how I can improve my photos from learning about the weather, learning about maps, and learning about outdoor survival so I can get into these locations. So all those things kind of drove me, and they all combined together as an escape from the technical side of the engineering job that I was working at. So as I started to design all these methods and workflows for shooting technique, well, my engineering mind was like, okay, you should write them down so you can repeat them each time and not have to rethink of them. So I started to write these checklists down of the actual step-by-step techniques that I was going through for setting up each shot, how I selected the settings. And as I wrote them down, I was like, okay, well, it looks like it would be a good idea to make a blog, because if I make this stuff and put it publicly, then I have some accountability to my own ego, because I don't want to be embarrassed about how bad my writing is. So I would make the technical writing really good. And I also did technical writing at work. So they kind of overlapped and combined together. And I really enjoyed it doing it as a hobby as well. So over time, I slowly developed all these different technical writings for all different types of landscape photography scenarios. And you can check out my website now, Dave Morrow Photography, or just Google Dave Morrow, it'll come up. And you can see the combination of all these and how they've slowly built and evolved over the last 10 or 12 years since I've been starting my website. So first I got into it just because I was enjoying it, and it was fun, and it was something to challenge myself. I never really planned on making money from it. I never thought I could make money from it. I never thought I could support myself from it. And I never understood what was coming as far as the internet and YouTube and all this stuff getting big, and how big landscape photography you get and how many people would want to learn about it. So anytime that I get into things, it's never because of money. It's always because the things are interesting to me and I want to improve at it, and it's going to be an adventure. It's going to push my limits. It's going to scare the shit out of me in the meantime, because anytime there's an adventure, it's not an adventure to me unless it scares me. And that fear of the adventure is what makes it so fun, because once you complete it and you're like, oh man, I didn't think I could do that thing, but I did it. And that little repetition and that cycle of completing things that you're scared to do and you don't think you can do, over time that builds into confidence in yourself, and that confidence in yourself lets you to know that you can shoot for these really high objectives and then you can complete them. So I never planned on making money off of any of this stuff, and I still don't try to optimize it for money. I try to optimize my business and my time and my life for getting knowledge out that I think is helpful, that I think is useful and interesting, and that I think would have helped me 5 years ago. So if anybody's trying to build a business out there, you don't have to build this perfect business product. Don't try to guess what people want. Just create stuff that would have helped you 5 years ago, because other people are behind you on this path. Other people are behind me on this path. And if I can show them shortcuts and ways of thinking and ways of learning that help me, then that's a business model right there. Because if you get enough people, well, they'll pay you for it. At least some of them will. And then you can produce more and you can make your business larger and you can help more people and you can make more useful products. And they can also fund your life, so you can buy a bunch of backpacking gear and spend your life out in the wilderness if it works out all right. So I never had this master plan for how all this stuff would combine. I would just say, what's interesting? And from what was interesting, I made useful things that could help other people off of it. And I always am continuing to look out on the horizon and say, how can I push myself? How can I challenge myself? And from there, what can I help other people with from these challenges that I've already gone through on my own?
I wanted to give you guys a quick heads up. Right now, if you join my email list, I have a 10-day free trial, which gives you unlimited access to all of my photography courses. Now, these courses teach every single technique that I use as a full-time wilderness photographer. So you'll learn camera technique, you'll learn photo editing, photo organization, composition, how to find shots in the field. You'll be able to access and watch dozens of my expeditions out into the wilderness where I take these photos and teach you how to create them from start to finish. I designed this school to be the perfect learning experience, something that I wish would have existed when I started wilderness photography, landscape photography, and outdoor photography 10 years ago. So if you'd like to join my email list, you'll get this 10-day free trial. You'll also get a bunch of other good stuff, including access to my PDF library, which includes all of my photography guides, which you can take out in the field to shoot with you. Check out the link down below this video to join and sign up. You can cancel anytime. I'll never hold your email address hostage. I want to provide you with the best learning experience possible. Now let's get back to the video.
So from that, about 7 years ago, I was like, okay, well, I could help a lot more people if I started to do a few workshops a year. So I was like, let's design some adventures that takes people to some of my favorite photography spots. And I don't go to all these popular hot spots where everybody goes. I like to go to places that take some adventure to find, and that I have to look at maps to find, and that are absolutely unbelievable because there's nobody there. So I wanted to take people to those spots, but at a small scale, because I think it's great to show a few people that are also interested some cool spots and take them on an adventure. So I wanted to do that because I know I would have liked that 5 years ago. So I did it for other people. So that started to scale up my business. And then people started to ask, well, how can I learn about photo editing? If I can't come to one of your outdoor adventures, how can I learn about all this stuff on the line? So I was like, all right, well, I'll record some courses and start putting them out there because people are asking for that as well. And then slowly this morphed into the fact that, well, my photography business was making more than my engineering job. So I was like, well, it seems that in a capitalist system, I am now more useful as a full-time landscape photographer than I am building airplanes doing engineering. Lots of people can learn to do engineering. It's very hard, but there's lots of engineers around the world. There's a lot fewer landscape photographers that can teach technically, that can teach in a step-by-step methodology, and that also go out backpacking and can teach a bunch of outdoor stuff. So I was looking at the landscape and saying, well, I'm a lot more valuable here in landscape and outdoor photography. I'm also a lot more interested in it, and I also have full control of my life doing it, and I can help other people at the same time. So at that point, I was like, all right, let's jump off the cliff, because worst case scenario, I can always go back to my engineering job, but if I hit 40 or 50 years old and I stuck with engineering and never took the risk of photography, then it would have just been depressing in my life. So I decided to make the jump about 7 years ago. And when I made that jump, even though my photography business was doing well, it was still really scary because whenever you're running your own business, you never know if next year it's going to fail or next month it's going to fail. And this always continues to be the case. So you have to stay on the forefront of the game. And I don't think it's possible to stay in the forefront of the game unless you're working on stuff you really like, that really interests you, that challenges you, but you can also share with other people and help them out that are following on the same path as you. So as far as that goes, I'm never having this business plan or 5-year plan. I just pick things that are interesting and go after them, and then I hope enough people will want to learn from me that they can fund all the products that I'm putting out, as far as learning products on my website or adventures out into the wilderness that I take people on. You guys can check out all my workshops and stuff. I'll leave links below, or all my courses and stuff. I have a 10-day free trial for all that stuff if you guys want to check it out. But my goal is just to make useful learning material. And as I learn more, I shift that learning material to match what I'm currently doing. So the learning material is ever evolving as my skills grow. I just try to teach it back to you guys once I have enough expertise at it that I can talk about it fluidly. So that's how my business evolved from amateur going up to now, where I still have a ton of learning to do about landscape and outdoor photography. I'm just pushing my limits higher and higher and higher. And I'm also starting to get into other stuff like podcasting, where I'm talking about thought process and mindset for creativity and how to manage your day if you're a single full-time creator where you have all the choice in the world of what you want to do. You have to narrow it down to what you actually want to work on. You guys can just Google Dave Morrow podcast. You can check out my podcast and all this stuff. But I'm always picking new things that I want to work on that interest me and will help other people. So I just want to keep saying that because I want to ingrain it into anybody's head that wants to do this on their own. Don't look for this solution. Don't go and pick somebody else's business model and say, I'm just going to reverse engineer from that. Say, what's interesting? Well, let's build it to help other people and make it a challenge for myself at the same time. One of the biggest influences in this for me was Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson was a journalist back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s until he killed himself, unfortunately. But he created what's called gonzo journalism. Essentially, he would embed himself in the journalism story and become part of it. And I was reading all his books at the time when I first got into landscape photography, and I thought to myself, man, it would be fun to embed teaching into photography adventures, into videos, and then teach entire courses or lessons that way. And that was always in the back of my mind this whole time. So about 10 years ago, I was like, I want to design out this system that shows people my adventures into the wild, but not only shows them that, but teaches them why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's like gonzo journalism for landscape photography and teaching. So I had that idea, and over the years, I just slowly built it out until what it is now. And now my business is doing great. I'm having a great time. I make plenty of money. I still live way below my means. I invest and save a lot of my money, mostly just invest in, because I know that'll work for me exponentially in the long term. And I also invest in myself, my learning of new things, and I also invest in my company. So I'm always putting new content out there. And the number one thing for creators, if they want to start a business of their own, number one, live way below your means. Don't buy a bunch of frivolous stuff you don't need, because then you're never nervous about the money coming. And then all your extra money, you can invest it. And over a long career, you'll have plenty of money to constantly take new risk on new business ideas. But most importantly, just go after stuff that challenges you. Go after stuff that helps you to learn, and go after stuff that you think will be helpful to others. After you learn it, you can teach it back to them. So I think that model works for anything you want to teach or anything you want to go after in life. And if you're the kind of person that likes to make decisions for themselves and be independent and take risks and see yourself overcome these challenges and push forward, it's the best life you could possibly live. There's definitely a lot of scary parts. There's a lot of challenges, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. So thanks for the great question. Like I said, I get all these questions from down in the comments. So leave me one below. Happy to answer anything you guys have. It's fun to talk. It's fun to be here. So thanks for watching.
Leave me a comment below with a question you may have had. I'll be answering them in future Q&A sessions. Also, leaving me a like or hitting the subscribe button to follow my channel is a huge help. I have a 10-day free trial which gives you unlimited access to all of the courses that I have that teach every single skill set about landscape and outdoor photography. These are skills that I've tuned, honed, and designed over the last 10 years as a full-time wilderness photographer. So if you'd like to get free access, test out all the courses, learn composition, learn camera technique, photo editing, organization, everything else that goes into the complete creation of wilderness and landscape photography images, check out the link below this video. Get signed up. No strings attached, no credit card required. I just want to give you guys access to understand everything that I know about landscape and outdoor photography. So thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.